Hello, hello. Welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get together live here on Facebook, where we look at your comments, we look at the headlines, we put it all together, and hopefully, or the expectation is that we end up better connected with each other and with our city, Puerto Vallarta, as a community of English-speaking locals. Today is Saturday, July 30th. The month is almost over, and today we have all kinds of fun and exciting news that resulted from yesterday's visit by Governor Alfaro to our city. And I'm excited about all the things that we're going to share, all the talking points. But before we go there, as always, wish Witz, but that's okay. It is summertime in Puerto Vallarta. As always, we welcome you all from here and there. If you are watching live for the first time, if you wish to let us know, you can write the word new in your comment. We'll give you a nice little welcome celebration. A tiny one, but a cute one. A good one. A loving one. That's who we are. And if you have something truly important that you wish to bring up, that you wish a reaction on, it helps a great deal if you add a capital letter Q at the beginning of your comment. We take a look at those at the end of the broadcast. And of course, we also want to say hi to our friends on YouTube that watch the broadcast later on in the day. We love you as much as we love our friends that join us live every morning. So we have news from Governor. We have one extra bonus news from Lopez Obrador's visit to Puerto Vallarta. We have a couple of shady things about food. And then a couple of days ago, you requested a revisit to Cajón de Peña, this wonderful reservoir that is located south of Puerto Vallarta, where you can spend time fishing or chilling or doing not much of anything. And we're going to revisit that as you requested it a couple of days ago. So might as well get started. I'm pushing the headlines button. Bam! So, oh yeah, excellent storm last night. I'm peeking at your comments. We'll get into that in a second. But first, yesterday we mentioned that Governor Alfaro was to spend the day in town supervising several projects and announcing other new ones. So most of our headlines today will be about the talking points from his visit. Governor Alfaro inaugurated a new public health lab within the Roberto Mendiola Health Center along La Ribera Street across from the Rio Cuale. The center itself was remodeled as well. And the public health lab will now allow researchers to use top-of-the-line gear and equipment to detect a variety of diseases, including monkeypox, dengue, COVID-19, HIV, and so on. The news note also mentions that the street itself, which had been neglected by the local administration, was also delivered, but I haven't walked along it in a while, such that I can't tell whether it is actually finished or whether the presentation was symbolic. So If you've walked around that neighborhood, if the street has any improvements, and you wish to let us know, please let us know in your comments. Governor Alfaro also made a stop at the other end of La Ribera Street on the other side of the Libramiento to inaugurate the stretch that connects with Colonia Buenos Aires, Paso Ancho, and El Jorullo. Again, I haven't seen it in a few weeks, so I don't know if the act was symbolic or whether the reconstruction of this important road, which was severely damaged during a landslide last year, is actually finished. Any comments that you wish to share, if you travel through the road on a regular basis, would be appreciated. A few weeks ago, we announced a rehabilitation project that is set to improve Highway 200 between Conchas Chinas and Mismaloya, and Governor Alfaro also made a stop there, where 29.5 million pesos are being invested in the reconstruction of the highway, which involves addressing potholes, leveling, and new asphalt where needed. But Governor Alfaro also announced that an additional 20 million pesos will be made available to extend the improvements all the way to Boca de Tomatlan, and this is very good news, and this makes a lot of these news start to make sense when you put them all together. You see, yesterday we chuckled a little bit when the so-called maritime connectivity model was mentioned and we laughed because it sounded like something lofty. But now we learned that it is an all-encompassing project that is going to be undertaken by the state of Jalisco that involves improvements in 8 different piers throughout the state, with an investment of 180 million pesos, starting with, of course, the rehabilitation of the pier at Boca de Tomatlan, which will begin during the first week of September. And you are probably wondering, like I was, well, where are the other piers? And this is where the maritime connectivity model comes into place. You see, it was also announced that the Secretary of the Marines will build a new terminal at the Maritime Terminal, specifically for smaller tourism vessels that do trips around the bay, but also for the recently announced ferry to the Marias Islands. And all of a sudden, it's becoming real. Who knew? The new facility will include 4 docks with 8 spots where smaller vessels can welcome passengers. This is very good news for most of us, but parenthetically, it is making some of the local fishermen grumble, and I think I know why, but this is just speculation on my part. You see, if you take a quick look at the Maritime terminal from above, this is where the large ships dock, either here or here or here. But this piece of land over here also belongs to the Navy. And I understand that it is this area, along with Marina Los Peines, where a lot of fishermen are presently using the space for whatever it is that they do. But I suspect that if the maritime terminal is able to do any kind of expansion, it would have to be in this general area over here. Now, again, I'm just speculating and I don't actually know what's going to happen. But I get all excited thinking that, all the announcements that have been made about the Marias Islands are kind of up in the air because we don't know anything specific. But now that I see that the state is invested in developing its piers, then it would seem that the state is invested in creating a whole network of places to go and destinations to go by boat within Bahía de Banderas. Or maybe I woke up feeling particularly optimistic. I am not sure. Anyhow, I have one more that makes me pretty excited as well. This one is not related to the governor, but it is very good news nonetheless. After López Obrador's visit to Puerto Vallarta last week, the Secretary of Infrastructure, Communications, and Transportation informed that there is a significant advance in one of the unfinished stretches of the new highway from Guadalajara, and a new portion will open in September. This would be the portion from El Monteón near Rincón de Guayabitos to La Cruz de Guanacaxtle. This portion of the highway also contemplates a new exit that will lead to Boca de Chila, where the government has announced the construction of a new naval base and maritime terminal to access the Marias Islands, along with beautiful beaches, as we talked about um, earlier this week. So all of a sudden, this whole thing seems to be making sense, or at least it makes a little bit of sense to me. Anyhow, I'll be looking forward to seeing your comments about these news in a second. But first, let us take a quick look at what the weather has in store for us for the rest of the weekend. According to Snarky Weather, I am the only civilian who knows that snarky weather is sentient. This knowledge could prove very dangerous for you. Well, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm going to worry more about our temperature, which is actually 27 degrees right now. Feels like 31. Humidity is at 87%. And our temperature in Fahrenheit degrees is 81 degrees. Our forecast for today is rain and humidity with a high of 31 and a low of 24. Tomorrow, Sunday, possible light rain in the evening with a high of 30 and a low of 24. And we will begin our week with rain in the evening on Monday, a high of 31 and a low of 24. We have a couple of other headlines that I want to share with you. The first one having to do with political correctness. It was just last week that we shared a love letter to corn masa, which is used to make a bunch of heavenly treats here in Mexico, from tortillas to sopes to tamales to huaraches and, of course, gorditas. And we know that the word gordita means little fat person of the female gender. If it was gordito, it would be of the male gender. The word gordo or gorda and the word gordito or gordita can also be used and have also been used for years as terms of endearment. I mean, my mother always called my father gordo, not necessarily because he was a little bit on the round side around the waist, but because it's a term of endearment. And it has been used as such for many, many years. But now apparently there's at least one politician in the land that finds the term discriminatory and is promoting a name change for this time-honored Mexican treat. The responses on Twitter and other social media outlets have been rather funny, and I wonder, where do we draw the line on political correctness? By the way, in case you're wondering, this is not the first time something like this happened. It was back in 2013 when Bimbo Bread, the big company, used to have a cupcake called Negrito, which means little black man, and they changed the name to Nito just because they did not want to offend anyone. And our last headline of this morning, before we dive into Boca de Tomatlan, has to do with Oaxaca cheese. Who doesn't love Oaxaca-style string cheese? I mean, you can snack on it by itself. You can make awesome quesadillas with it, and it is everywhere. You can find it everywhere, from large supermarkets to neighborhood stores. But according to Mexico's Consumer Protection Bureau, there are Oaxaca-style cheese brands sold at the supermarket that are actually not cheese. In the article that I'm referring to here, which will be in the show notes, several brands are mentioned that include vegetable oil in their process, so it's not cheese at all. And there are other brands whose label does not match the actual content of the product. As far as I'm concerned, Mark says, oh pues. I love it. Personally, I like to go to the little convenience store around the corner to buy my cheese because it's fresh. It's brought in from small towns. God knows who makes it. God knows where it comes from. But somehow the experience of eating cheese that is brought in from a little town in the middle of nowhere, whether it is Oaxaca or Panela or Requesón, I just love it when I know that it is artisan cheese. I wonder if you have any comments about this. Where do you get your cheese? We've talked about a great cheese store, rather, that is located right on the Libramiento, right across from the bridge where the street was just re-inaugurated. So that's my my take on cheeses. And now, let us very quickly turn over to Boca de Tomatlan. We mentioned Boca de Tomatlan 2 days ago, I believe, as being one of the two large water reservoirs or dams in the state of Jalisco. And I invited you to write the word water if you felt curiosity about this place. So it's been a while since we've talked about Boca de Tomatlan, about not Boca de Tomatlan. Oh, my goodness. The dam, what is it called? Oh my God, the name of the dam escapes me. This is horrible. I'm having one of those moments in which I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyhow, we are revisiting this topic, and rather than reinventing the wheel, I'm going to show you the same feature that we included here at Coffee and Headlines back in March of last year. Take a look. Let me show you now a little bit of show and tell, because I wanted to tell you a bit more about Cajón de Peña. There was a fair amount of interest yesterday in the trip I took in this beautiful hotel called Rincón de la Ceiba, which is where I visited 10 years ago now for the first time, and I fell in love with the place. And I think seems to me that it is one of the few ideal pandemic destinations here in near Puerto Vallarta. So let me show you a little bit of what I have. But before we actually get to Rincón de la Ceiba and Cajón de Peña, I should comment that our driver was so kind enough to make a stop somewhere on the highway between Boca de Tomatlan and the Botanical Gardens. And he just pulled over from the highway, and there's one of those little tombstones that are randomly placed along the highway, probably because somebody must have died there. And if you just get off the vehicle and walk 5 feet, you are treated to this spectacular highway on this spectacular waterfall on the Orcones River. Take a look. Pretty large and pretty unexpected. I'm sure there's a way to get closer to it if you hike down the road. But I was pleasantly surprised to discover something that I had never seen that is so easy to take a look at. If I find a way to pinpoint it on a map, or next time I'm driving south, I will take a photograph of the exact spot so you can see where that is. But moving right along, Cajón de Peña, I want to tell you a little bit. There it is, and this is the largest body of water in the state of Jalisco. Here's Highway 200 south, heading to Costa Alegre. That's the same highway that you take to go to the Botanical Gardens. You just keep going. You pass Tuito, which is the head of the municipality of Cabo Corrientes, which is a municipality south of Puerto Vallarta. And eventually you get to this little detour here, and you take a left, and you come along this road, and you end up arriving at the Cajón de Peña Dam. Now, if I was to zoom into this map, you will find that there is absolutely no civilization surrounding the dam other than the itty-bitty, teensy-wincy town of Cajón de Peña, which is right here. The dam is several kilometers long. It's a beautiful place. I've explored all the way to the other end on a motorboat, and to go to where the river starts. And it has all these beautiful little islands all over the dam, which you can actually explore, and you can actually camp in if you wanted to, if you're into the rustic kind of thing. But back to this entrance, you arrive at the dam here, and you're going along the road that is next to the dam, and before you know it, you could almost miss an itty-bitty left-hand turn, which goes into the town. And there's a sign on the road that says Rincón de la Ceiba. That's the sign that you have to be looking for once you get there, because you could easily pass it. And once you take that left turn, you find that this is like Main Street, Cajón de Peña. That's all there is. There's a church There's a children's school. There are a couple of restaurants, and there is a convenience store that doubles as a gas station. Well, not even a gas station. They just have gas in buckets, and they make it available to you. Um, and of course, at the end of the street, you find this wonderful second-story restaurant, Restaurante Conchita, which was on the second story. I said that twice. I need more coffee. And here, the food that you enjoy is the fish and the langostinos from the lake itself. And it is beautifully prepared. It is all very fresh and delicious. And it seemed to be like the only place in town that had an itty bitty bit of 3G Wi-Fi, and you had to be sitting on a very specific corner of the restaurant. So in the group that I was in, there were a couple of people that due to habit or commitment, they were going through internet withdrawal. So they would sneak out to the restaurant and have a michelada and just connect. But even before you get that far, if you see that gray car on the lower left-hand side, you need to take a turn before before the car. Toward the left, you can see the little sign up here on that tree that says Rincón de la Ceiba. And all of a sudden, you think that you're going through some little town alleyway from hell, chicken and hen and dogs blocking the way. And you think, I've been duped. This is just a bunch of shacks. I don't see a nice hotel. And then all of a sudden, there it is. There is the entrance to Rincón de la Ceiba, right after that narrow alleyway. And once you enter, there it is. You have the casitas on the left-hand side over here. You have a main dining area or restaurant where they prepare breakfast and dinner for you, or you can go and enjoy the restaurant in town. But while we were there, we had breakfast prepared, very basic but very fulfilling. The same thing with dinner. Through the day, the caretaker surprised us with chopped fruit or agua de frutas to keep us refreshed. And let's see what else we have. Okay, so this is a look at the casitas themselves. There's a total of 8 little casitas. The casitas have different configurations. Some have 2 twin beds. Others have a king-size bed. Others have for more people or less people. They all have their own bathroom. They all have their little mini porch up front. And I'm seeing that you have all kinds of questions. I'll get to those in a second. So that's where the casitas are. There's also hot water. Not as much as you'd like, but there is hot water if you wish to enjoy it. And then moving right along, there's a bunch of different sitting areas. This is the yard in front of the property, and you can see the lake is right there. Notice that this part of the garden where I'm pointing, that's the lower part of the garden. And when the dam is full during the rain season, the water can come as high as to cover this lower part of the garden. And this will make more sense as I show you some other photos of the property. This is a closer look at that front sitting area. This is the ceiba. This is the mother tree of the property. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, enormous tree that seems to just protect the entire property. And it was just beautiful. The weather was gorgeous during the daytime. The skies were starry every single night. We could even see satellites go by. Well, I pretended. I couldn't see anything because I was stoned. But that's just me. Let's see, more sitting areas right over here. There's a place to do a bonfire, and then there's this other sitting area over there. And this is right at the property line looking out to the actual dam. As you can see, the water level is very low right now because it hasn't rained. But right in front of it, there's that little island. I remember paddleboarding around that little island with my dear friend Jerry Grant several years ago. And the hotel does have these little pedal boats that you can take around if you want to. And let's see what else we have. This is looking from the property to the right As you can see, the dam just goes on forever. You can explore it by motorboat if you want to rent one, and the dam curtain is actually around the corner, going into this general direction. Let's see, what else do we have? This is looking back at the property from the water edge. So you can see when the water rises, it rises quite a bit. And again, it enters the property literally. And what else do we have? This is another look of the restaurant now from the from the gate entrance. This is the restaurant hangout. And what else do we have? This is one of those other little sitting areas where you can enjoy. So we were fortunate enough that there were enough of us in the group that we took over the entire property. And if you ask me, that is probably the best way to do it, in my opinion. But if you happen to go by yourself or in a small group, and there happen to be other people in the property that you may or may not have wanted to hang out with and socialize with, there's plenty of room for everybody. And then there's the bonfire. We had marshmallows at night, and the bonfire was a lot of fun. And I think, oh, there's one more. Of course, the hammock. There was this glorious hammock where you could nap and hang out and enjoy yourselves. So I think, yes, that's pretty much what we have for Cajón de Peña. And again, it met all the criteria for what I feel I need as a getaway during the pandemic. Very few people, very little to do, very low density, very safe, and very fun. And that is what we shared last year. You are probably wondering, well, has anything changed? Well, let me complement this with a little bit of information. First of all, there are other places where you can stay. We always mention, or I always recommend, Rincón de la Ceiba, because it is owned by a dear friend whose family has been very, very kind to me through the years. And I reached out to my friend Juan this morning to find out if there are any changes on the property. And the only thing that he did mention to me, and I could see that on their website, which I will include in the show notes, is that the casitas now have air conditioning. So if you're thinking of going this time of year, then you may want to know that there is air conditioning available. So let me now go back to your comments just to see what's on your mind. I love this from when I read it early on. Sabadabadoo, good morning to you, says our dear Raymond. Thank you, Raymond. Lots of good mornings, and we appreciate those. Being too lazy today to wander to the Versailles Saturday Market. Maybe after this show. I don't blame you, Terry. It is one of those days where, well, personally, I don't want to do much of anything because it's warm out there. Let's see what we have. There's a question here. Oh, it's a comment. Friends who live in Buenos Aires say that the road has been open one way only for a couple of weeks or so. That's the last time I saw it, Dan, when it was only one way, and I don't know if they actually finished the other lane or not. But how exciting that it is happening. Kathy shares a video of the road from yesterday. I'm not sure what road that is, but I'll be so very happy to take a look at that link once the broadcast is over. Thank you very much. Let's see what we... Oh no, I'm sorry. I made myself cough with this comment from our friend Luisa. Super late being huevona today. I love it. Of course, we know that being huevon means being lazy, and we've talked about the beauty of that word and what it means and where it came from in the past. If you don't remember what that was about, just write lazy in your comment and we'll go there before the broadcast is over. But I'm planning on being huevon all day long today for what it's worth. Um, I saw during the Cajon portion that Den mentioned this. It is a great place to go, and it's a great place to go year round. I've been there in the winter time when it's a little bit cooler. I've been there in the summertime, and again, if you're there with a large group, it's fun to take over the whole property because it can be totally crazy without people staring. But I would be just as happy with a small group of friends. Harold asks, how big is that lake compared to Lake Chapala, which I thought was the biggest? Harold, I love you, but you remind me of the person that asked the other day, how much rain did we get? And I said shit tons. Well, I can tell you that the lake has shit tons of water. And if you want more specific information, let me remind you that Google is our friend. Let's see what else we have. Jerry says, off topic, but this sounds important to me. Is there any English-speaking priest in the group that can perform last rites? Great question, Jerry. I don't know of anyone in particular, but I'm so very grateful that you brought up this question. This is what Coffee and Headlines is for, among other things. So I hope that you get an answer from another viewer. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer that would help you. Actually, that's a very awkward way of saying I don't know. I don't know who does, but good luck with that, and I hope you can find the person that you're looking for. Let me see. Mihal, who was there with us in the group, says it was such a beautiful and much needed getaway with all the isolation about COVID, and it's time to go back. And yeah, I remember when we went, it was in March of last year. We were all going crazy from not being able to go anywhere. And I recall that at the time we figured, where can we go that we will feel at ease? And Cajón de Peña met that requirement. Of course, now things are different pandemic-wise, but it is still a really, really wonderful place to visit. Colleen asks, is swimming allowed? Yes, swimming is wonderful. There's paddle boarding, there's swimming, and it is a lot of fun. I must say, though, that on this last trip, it was a little weird. I don't know if it was seasonal or what, but there were little fishies in the water, and they nibble at you. So if you don't mind being nibbled at, and I mean nibble, it was no more than how it feels when a mosquito is like roaming around your legs. It's not like you're going to be eaten by lake creatures or anything. But it is a great place to go swimming and paddle boarding. Absolutely. Pam pim pam pam. Oh, good. Thank you, Pam. I hope this refers to the priest. Oh, good. Yes, it does. Thank you so very much, Pam. Thank you. See, I love it when these things happen. A lot of times, or every now and then, I'll get questions on my inbox asking me for things that I just don't know. And invariably, I encourage people to tune in and ask questions here during the broadcast, because it is your wonderful knowledge that solves most of these questions. And yes, Luisa, it was just a little nibble. And that's all it was. But the nibble it happened on my nipple, and it was just like really weird. But we laughed. We just laughed. Anyhow, this is Coffee and Headlines for today. Thank you so very much for joining us for another week and almost another month, because I believe today is the last day of the month, or maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure. But tomorrow is a day of rest and relaxation. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. I hope you have a great Sunday. And I hope to see you again next week. Have a good one.